Look at the sun. It's so beautiful. I'm just having a moment with it. But my lens is focusing on me. So I'm like, I don't know if you're going to see how gorgeous it is. Anyways, so hey friend, my name is Vuyo. If you are new to this channel, I am a life coach. I specifically work with people who have experienced, I'm outside, so there's like things rustling and stuff. So don't mind me. But I work specifically with people who've experienced developmental trauma from abandonment and or neglect. And you might say that's the same thing. It is not. To me, I experienced both. Abandonment being if a person or caregiver chooses to remove themselves from parenting, just chooses to kind of, take their hands off the wheel and chooses not to participate as a parent, just an absent parent. And then neglect, parental neglect, is the ways in which an otherwise present caregiver still fails to emotionally support us or adequately prepare us for adulthood. So to me, when you hear me say those words, that is the difference, is that there is neglect that happens circumstantially. Maybe the parent is there but struggling with addiction or other mental health conditions, or they work a full-time job, or they're just otherwise emotionally unavailable. There are many different circumstances that can contribute to you feeling or you being neglected. And then abandonment is, yes, like as I said, just taking your hands off the wheel. So you being a child, this little beautiful precious being born into the earth, there are certain things that you needed that you did not get, ways in which you needed or expected your parents to show up, that if those needs weren't met, they will severely affect or impact how you see yourself and how you show up in the world. And one of the ways that it affects you is your confidence. You will most likely have a sense of perpetual anxiety, fear, this sense of fear of taking up too much space, this nervousness around inconveniencing people, or this kind of sense of emptiness where you feel as though, you're not really, you can't be loved. You're just like, where you feel as though you're fundamentally unlovable, as though you don't deserve to exist or take up space, or that the world might be, and I hate this is an insidious thought, that that the world would be better off if you weren't in it, which is a lie. I rebuke that. It's a lie from the devil. But these little thoughts can kind of creep up on you. They're insidious in that way that if you're not paying attention, they will start to frame like how you view your relationships, the careers, the career choices that you make, romantic partnerships, who you marry. They will impact your faith. They will impact how you manage your finances. They'll impact your children further down the line. And most personally, they impact how you view yourself and your mental health. And so I know that is a broad, that's a very broad spectrum to cover in one video. I won't hit every single point on that, but what I want you to know fundamentally is that just because you had neglectful or abandoning caregivers does not mean that you are not worthy of prioritizing, does not mean that it doesn't in any way, shape, or form negate your worth in any way, shape, or form. it does not negate your worth. You are a human being who is inherently worthy of dignity, kindness, love, respect, compassion, and expansion in any regard, in expansion in wisdom, expansion in your capacity to meet your needs, expansion in love, expansion in faith. You deserve to grow. And just because you weren't nurtured, it doesn't mean that you're now permanently or forever excluded from experiencing all of those things, from experiencing love, financial stability, intellectual or academic growth, for having a healthy sense of self or building your confidence. All of those things, although other people might have had a bit of a head start in some ways, it doesn't mean that you don't also get to experience that. It doesn't mean that you also don't get to love yourself. So I'm going to share with you some of the ways in which some of the ways in which God has helped me grow my confidence as He has been taking me through what now feels like probably a 9-year journey of healing and slowly individuating from my family, or from my initial circumstance. So the first one or let me not say the first one, but the most impactful reframe or mental shift that He took me through was understanding who I am in Him. As in, He took me through a massive identity shift, because I always thought that you belong to the people you come from. You belong to your family. You belong to whoever, whatever, wherever your upbringing tells you belong to. God had to take me through a whole journey, but it was incredibly, if I were to summarize it, it's incredibly simple, which is, no, you belong to God. You belong to your Creator. You come through your parents, but you belong to God. You have a Creator that loves you, that has built you and created you, and designed you with so much intentionality and intelligence that if you're paying attention and you're looking, you too will marvel at just how intricately you're designed. You can look at yourself, you can look at anything in nature. I know there's a lot of people who have some religious some contention with religious framing of faith, or there's folks who just have been disappointed, or who are still just trying to navigate faith through a conceptual lens. And I respect that nobody rushed me towards God. He just showed me who He was, and He showed me at a time when I needed Him most. And so I, beyond a doubt, know who God has been for me. And I wish that everybody, not even I wish, I pray, and it is my desire for everyone to come to know God in the depth and with the level of certainty that I do. But I know that not everybody is going to be there that fast. So I'm going to leave room for that. But I want you to know that you belong to God, not to your parents. People in their attempts to love and to raise us are often imperfect, and we often, through our lack of understanding or through our resentment or through our hurt, our grief, we tend to superimpose these images onto God, or we just refuse to accept that God exists, or to believe in a loving God, a benevolent, loving Father, because of our experiences, because of the things that we've been through. And so we think there's no room for, we either choose our resentment or we choose our faith. And sometimes we can't have both. But I want to tell you, God can hold room for both. You can bring your resentment, your frustration, your grief, your anger, your confusion to God. Okay, I'm gonna just set that there. You're a child of God. And then I'll follow that up with, Oh my goodness, I could go on and on about that. But God loves you, okay? Don't get it twisted. God loves you, and God is like mad about you. Like, he loves you so, so much, okay? And if people have misrepresented love to you, please don't think that God also, like, don't paint God with the same brush, okay? Humans are incredibly imperfect. Unfortunately, the people who impact our lives and our self-concept and our identity the most are the people closest to us. And if they do an imperfect job of representing what love looks like, then we can kind of write the whole thing off, including our faith, including future really loving and encouraging and nurturing relationships. We can kind of write the whole thing off and just either cling to really toxic people, or we can just like act like I won't let myself, because people can hurt me, and that's not God, okay? And I'm so sorry if someone has misrepresented God or misrepresented love to you. You deserve better. You didn't deserve that, okay? There is okay. Okay, I want to say, I want you to extend them grace. I know it's also incredibly unfair. Extend them grace to the extent that you are able to let go of their image. As in, forgive them to the extent where you're able to let go of their idealized version that you made up in your head and you wished they would have lived up to. I want you to let that go. And if you're still processing the feelings and emotions and the traumas attached to those relationships, give yourself room to do that. But also, at some point when you are ready to let go of that idealized version and to grieve those idealized version of your parents, then come to a point where you can be open to receiving God as the unconditionally loving, present, ever present, like infinitely compassionate, infinitely gracious, graceful, loving. There are not enough adjectives in the world to describe it, but you deserve a love that is stable. You deserve a love that is ever present. You deserve a love that makes room for all of who you are, that is unconditional. Okay, God loves you. I can't say it enough. I literally cannot say it enough. You are loved. You are treasured. You are important. You are significant. You are worthy. And I'm so sorry. The people you wanted to love you the most are the very ones who broke your heart first. You did not deserve that. My goodness. I have this note right in front of me on my diary. These are like notes that I wrote like last year. And it says, you are loved beyond measure and you are treasured beyond belief. I know, oh, man. Okay. Anyways, let me just, we'll come back to this in like a future video. I'm gonna go through my whole journals, like as many of my journals and my writings. I am a writer. Like, I write literally all the time. There's never a time where I don't have like multiple journals on me. And so I'm gonna go through them and reread some of the revelations and the things that God was showing me at the time when he was taking me through like active healing. Now I feel like it's kind of like I'm on the other side of it to a large degree, and so the wounds don't feel so like fresh and so open. And in some ways I feel like I hate to say it, but I feel like I don't remember, like I don't have a visceral sense of that feeling of rage and frustration and abandonment and unworthiness, to the point where in some ways I have to go back and read from myself who was in that time frame and hear from my own voice, from my own thoughts, how I was going through that stuff and processing it. So anyways, so the second way in which God has brought me out, or like built my confidence up after experiencing neglect and abandonment, is through addressing this wound of shame. So I, for the longest time, have felt so much self-disgust, so much self-hatred, so much, I have like self-abandoned in so many ways, because I never had a frame of reference to show me or reflect back to me that I was worthy of love. And the secondary part of that is that like most children do, there are different theories around the subject of why self-hatred occurs. The primary one I've heard a lot of people talk about within the trauma healing or psychological circles is that there is an internalized voice of a critical parent, or that we take on the shame of the harm that is caused by our parents. We take it on as though we're at fault because we idealize our parents. They can't possibly be what's wrong. So if they don't love us, if they don't receive us in the way that we need to feel emotionally nurtured and to feel secure and stable and loved, if they don't respond in the way that we need, then we begin to internalize that as though there's something wrong with us. And so God started to work with me on that too. And that still speaks to identity, but also it was just like the shame kind of had a life of its own. It kind of had a life of its own in the sense that I had no control over it. It was ruling my life, and it would be the cause of self-sabotage, be it in careers, in relationships, in like academic regards. Like there was no room for any level of imperfection. There was no room for me to there was nothing in me that said that I could extend myself grace, because I felt like I was inherently so shameful that I didn't deserve love. I didn't deserve opportunities, that you can't even trust yourself. Like, who are you to allow yourself to have your needs met? Who are you to allow yourself to be unconditionally loved? Like, there was this inherent narrative of shame and guilt, this fear of imposition, this sense, hello birds, this sense that I was just like lower than scum. A really helpful book I read, and I listen to audiobooks more than I am able to regulate myself enough to sit still to actually read a book sometimes, but Healing the Shame That Binds by John Bradshaw. He speaks or breaks down the concept of what shame looks like so in so much detail, and with such, it's so accurate that I'm like, yo, okay, like literally everybody needs to read that. I am rereading it now, or re-listening to the audiobook now, and I'm getting new things from it, because anytime you like read a book that changes your mind about something, or that affects you in a really deep way, it's always really helpful to go back and listen to it again, because there's certain parts of it that you will not be able to receive on the first run, and when you go back a second time, you'll have processed the little bits and pieces that you were able to receive the first run, that you'll now be open to add on to it in the following runs. This is kind of a tangent. Let's circle back. Okay, so addressing the shame, addressing the identity of belonging, and then addressing the shame. And then the next part is, God showed me that I have the ability to expand as a person. I always thought that intelligence was fixed. I always thought that potential was fixed. I always thought that like who people tell you are in childhood, like that's it. If nobody encourages you, nobody affirms you, nobody sees you in a loving light, that that's it. Or if you're in an environment that isn't conducive to your success or to your ambition, like, you get what you get and that's it. And I know that I'd heard a lot of stories, like a lot of us hear these stories about people who move out of exceptionally difficult circumstances and make a life for themselves. And I always wondered, like, what makes a person able to overcome those circumstances? And I think at the root of it is a combination of love and faith, and the permission or the ability to give yourself grace, as in to fail through the process of refinement, to fail upwards, and to give yourself permission to grow. That no certain characteristic, if you have a goal, that no, like, I'll finish the sentence, that there's no characteristics that about you that is fixed. So if you have a goal or a desire that you want to reach, and you're like, the me that I am right now couldn't possibly accomplish that, in between that goal is either a lack of faith, a lack of knowledge, or a gap in execution. You just haven't tried it enough. You just haven't done your reps, or you're missing a certain gap of like information, or you just don't believe in yourself. And so God showed me that no, like, my identity, my capacity to progress is not fixed, and I can accomplish what he has sent me to accomplish, what he has given me the capacity to accomplish or access my potential, through those three things: faith first, knowledge, execution. I don't know if they come in a particular order, but like, those three things to me have been like a massive recipe. The next thing is psychoeducation, and I'm not going in a particular order, I'm just saying what I know. The next thing is learning about psychology, like learning about how developmental trauma impacts the mind, impacts your self-concept, impacts your relationships, impacts your frame of reference, your unique frame of reference for how you see and navigate the world. How your psychological or developmental trauma impacts your body. How does your body store that trauma? How does it then affect like your gut? How does it affect your brain, like your actual brain and the neural pathways, and how your brain responds chemically to certain things? Like, I have struggled with major depressive disorder, so like chemical, like low dopamine, and then also the emotional depression of just like being in isolation and not being able to conjure up positive feelings and emotions. Even after I had done a significant amount of emotional processing, I still had this like heaviness, and God literally told me in the middle of the night, I was just sitting in my bed and I was just thinking about this depression thing, and he was just like, "You're not depressed, you have low dopamine." And I was like, oh. And then I proceeded to go and get a diagnosis, which I got, and I got the treatment. But I was also, at the same time when I got to get that diagnosis, I was put on I was diagnosed with ADHD and major depressive disorder, and so they put me on the Ritalin, and I didn't want to take the depression medication as well. So I started making some lifestyle changes, like eating more. Like, I'm not gonna give suggestions in that regard unless you have like follow-up questions, but I don't want it to seem like I'm prescribing like solutions for depression. But their ADHD and depression often are comorbid, as in they kind of co-occur oftentimes, and so yeah, they put me on treatment for both, but I was just like but yeah, I didn't have peace about it in my spirit. So yeah, I just changed my eating habits and I started exercising. I joined a local gym and I started just like walking my 10k steps a day, and eating better, like meal prepping ahead of time to account for the fact that sometimes I'm not going to have the physical energy to like do stuff every day. And I stopped holding myself to a ridiculously high standard. Hello, perfectionism. And I just started, like trying to take care of myself, because anyways, now I know. I feel like these ideas are a little bit scattered. I hope when you're watching this or when I'm watching this back, it makes more sense than it feels like I'm making as I'm speaking. But we're going to go forward. So the next thing that God dealt with in order to help restore my confidence, the sun is going down. Look at that. Ain't it pretty? In order to restore my confidence, was forgiveness. And I touched on it briefly in this video, but it is such a complex subject that I don't feel like I can just like make a throwaway comment about forgiveness, because it was so difficult for me. There was nobody ever apologized, nobody ever acknowledged the ways in which I was harmed or hurt, and what they nobody ever acknowledged like what they did. And so me going through that process of trying to forgive in some ways felt really like invalidating. It felt like I was still upset. It felt like I was still like in some ways holding on to resentment. But here's what God showed me. My parents were never perfect people. The people that raise us, the people that bring us into the world, as much as we want them to be the ideal, they are not. They're just people who have their own upbringings, their own hurts. And I'm not a person who would ever ask you to rush past your grief, your rage, your confusion, your hurt. I would never ask anybody to do that. I don't expect people to rush into forgiveness, because like false forgiveness doesn't last. Or like trying to forgive people who are still actively causing you harm also doesn't work. It don't make no sense. But when you begin to actually like in depth release the resentment that you've been harboring towards your parents, you begin to make room for yourself. When you begin to acknowledge the ways in which they hurt you, and then go through the process of saying, I release you from the responsibility of having showed up in a different way. And I know that whether it's because you can't or don't want to, I'm not going to get my needs met from you. And then you go through the process of asking yourself, how can I get those needs met from within? How can I meet those needs myself? And part of that is knowing who God is, and like actually taking that into your heart and allowing him to change and transform your identity, your sense of self, your sense of belonging, and to actually heal your heart from all that grief, that rage, that resentment. And then you go through the process of reparenting yourself. You going through the process of actually listening to yourself, of validating yourself, of accepting yourself, of seeing yourself for who you are, and saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you didn't get your needs met. I'm so sorry that nobody prioritized loving you. I'm so sorry that nobody understood you. I'm so sorry that the people who were placed in your life to love and support and to encourage let you down so much that you don't even see yourself, that you view yourself as something expendable, disposable, worthy of disregard, which you are not. But I'm so sorry that that is what you got from the developmental years, the really foundational years of your life. You didn't deserve that, but how can I meet you now? How can you and little you, like, how can you be the parent that you needed? And allow God to parent you, and then allow yourself to show up in the ways that you currently need to be parented, or in the ways that you needed to be parented in the past. Those are just like some of the, like, if I'm able to like keep it simple or succinct to the best of my capacity. I don't want the video to go any longer. So I'm gonna like end it here, but this conversation for me is ever ongoing. It will forever be continuous, I think. Just because I know that there's so much relational harm out in the world. There is, and I still every day am healing in more ways, and more things are being revealed to me, and I'm beginning to understand myself on deeper levels. And I'm never, like, I feel like I will never be short on insights about this particular subject, just because it's impacted me so much, and I have made it, or God has made it my, like, it lives in my heart. This particular subject, just, it lives in my heart. And so I hope that some part of this video, that you found it helpful, and that you will stick around and subscribe and look out for future videos. I do offer one-on-one coaching. If you would love to book a session with me, you can just check the link either down in the description of this video, or you can go to my main channel. There's a link, my main page on my channel. There's a link in there to my Calendly, and we can just book a session and chat. When I go through the process of coaching people, at the core is I want to understand or help you reflect on how your childhood is still impacting you on the day-to-day. Like, how is your abandonment or neglect trauma still affecting how you live your day-to-day life? How does it affect the decisions you make? How does it affect how you view yourself? And how can we begin to extricate your core identity, as in who you really are, from who you had to become in order to survive your childhood? We can either, it depends on the person. Sometimes it's like a bringing them together, or it is a grieving that self and just letting some of those traits go, and really just becoming more of who you are. But I like to think of it as like you coming home to yourself. In any and all regards, it's just you coming home to yourself. So like the video if you like it. I'm like filming in public, and I'm always like, oh my god, cringe. But yeah, the sun is going down. So yeah, I'm gonna end it here. I am sending you so much love. Remember, you are worthy, you're significant, you're important. I am rooting for you, literally, always, in all ways. I wish you nothing but the best, and my hope for you is for you to heal in a way that is sustainable, in a way that is I'm literally, I'm trying to show you, just like with your whole heart, okay? But yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Peace and love. Mwah.